Hey, I'm Ben Trueblood, Director of Student Ministry for LifeWay, and I want to talk to you about the approach that you need to take to re-engage disconnected students right now. So here we are about to go into fall 2020, and none of us thought it would be this way, and yet it is. And if you are honest and you do an evaluation of what the last 4 months have been, it's been weird, and there are disconnected students in your ministry. There have been students who have just unplugged entirely. There have been students when everything went online and ministry went virtual, they just disappeared. There have been students that were around a whole lot that aren't around as much anymore. And maybe there were even some students in your ministry that were more on the fringe. Maybe they had just started to come. Maybe they're new to the church and they've disappeared as well. And whatever level of disengagement has happened in your ministry, I want to talk to you about the mindset, the approach that you need to take in order to re-engage those students. Because here's what we know to be true. Over the last 4 months, the world your students live in has changed. Their lives have been disrupted. Normal has been disrupted. It's different. And because of that, there's been some disconnection that's taken place. They have lost the influence of teachers in their lives for the end of their spring semester. They've lost the influence of coaches in their lives, in large part because of activities being canceled. They've lost the influence maybe of some friends that they've had as relationships, and people just haven't stayed in contact without a normal cadence of seeing each other physically in person. And so all of these influences have begun to change, and in a lot of ways, even their relationship with you as their student pastor has changed over these last 4 months. And because of that, the influence level has changed as well. Maybe other influences have stepped in. Maybe the influence of our culture, maybe the influences of a habit or temptation that existed that has just been brought out even more. Maybe the influence of a home life where it's not ideal for them to be stuck at home for days and weeks and months on end. And all of these things can roll up into a moment where they've disconnected from you or disconnected from the spiritual connection that they had through student ministry. And so here's the mindset that I want to challenge you to take on as you approach individual relationships with teenagers going into this fall. And that is the mindset of discovery. Okay? Now I'm going to go through 3 questions as a part of this mindset of discovery that I think will equip you to re-engage students quickly and effectively. And the first question is this: what are the situations where homes aren't in a healthy place? What are the situations that exist in my ministry where the home isn't in a healthy place? Now this takes some relational work on the front end. Maybe you already knew of some of these examples. Maybe a small group leader, as you connect with the small group leaders because they might have deeper relationships in regards to this, more vulnerable relationships in regards to students that you don't have, talk to them. Find out which of these home situations aren't in a healthy place and take specific action to reach out to those teenagers, to reach out to those parents. And again, you're not calling anyone out for anything in this moment unless you're legally bound to by what is going on. But if it's just an unhealthy place, a place that a teenager doesn't need to be for hours and weeks and months on end, then this is a moment where you can step in a pastoral way and minister not just to the teenager, but minister to the parents as well. This hit me directly in the face the other day. I was getting a haircut. Masks on everywhere in the barber shop. And I was talking to the barber about this very thing, just about COVID and being at home. And he made the statement to me, man, as a teenager, my home was really rough and this would not have been a healthy place for me. And, we've talked about that and heard that in student ministry circles and have prayed for that. But having someone just say it directly to my face was a greater intensity than I've experienced with that before. So reach out to your small group leaders. If you know of specific students that are in a rough home life, take this opportunity to pastor those parents, take this opportunity to pastor those kids, but that's going to take a discovery mindset for you to say, okay, maybe some things are off my plate. They might have been replaced with other things, but I'm going to carve out specific time to discover the home situations of my students so that I can pastor and minister appropriately. The next question is this: how are your students feeling and thinking about cultural issues? So not only have we had COVID to deal with, right? But there is a lot of conversation happening around racial injustice, around police brutality, around the election and the upcoming presidential vote that's going to be taking place in November. There are a lot of cultural issues happening in our country and in our world right now. Taking a discovery mindset puts you in a place where you're saying, I need to know how my students are feeling and thinking about these things. And when you're in that mindset, and as you begin to discover what they're feeling and thinking about cultural issues, it gives you tremendous opportunities not to just force feed them all of your answers, even if those answers are from Scripture, but not just opportunities to force feed them, but opportunities for you to be their scriptural guide, for you to walk them through the process of working through the truth on their own and finding and coming up with their own conclusions based on Scripture for how they think and feel about the situations that are happening around them. This is an awesome learning opportunity. And here's what's happening. All of these issues, racial injustice, police brutality, the election coming up, COVID, all of them are coming together, and the different messages that they're hearing from all kinds of different people are influencing their worldview. These are different influences than existed 4 months ago. And so take on a mindset and approach of discovery to find out how these messages and how these voices are contributing to their worldview. And again, this is a moment for you to play the part of guide, not just lecturer in this moment, to help them seek the truth and develop a worldview. Remember, a worldview that they develop on their own based on Scripture will stick far longer than a worldview that we just try to hand them on what we say. All right, and here's question number 3. What have their spiritual patterns been like? What have their spiritual patterns been like? So here's what a conversation might look like. Instead of saying, hey, the NBA's back, what'd you think of that first Lakers game? Maybe the conversation starts there, but we need to do a good job in this moment as student pastors, taking the approach of discovery and not just discovering how they feel about baseball or soccer or basketball being back, but really finding out about how their spiritual patterns have been over the last 4 months. Being out of school and being out of church largely, have they continued in those daily practices and habits of having a relationship with God? What have those things looked like in their lives? And again, as you discover these things, along with the other 2 questions, it gives you insight, not just to how to welcome them back into the church, which is great, but it gives you insight in how to pastor them, which is what they need in this moment. Okay? It's a wrong assumption to believe that everyone is going to return the exact same way that they were back at the beginning of March. Influences have changed, the world has changed, and it's going to change people. And real connection comes from a place of knowledge of the people, because with knowledge of the people comes opportunities to pastor, and real connection can flourish for ministry. Hey, if you're looking for other student ministry related content, I want to encourage you to go to Student Ministry That Matters on YouTube, and I will see you when you get over there.